Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Robert Stickle, and I'm also joined by my colleagues Jim Patterson and Paul Estabrooks. Jim and Paul will be today's presenter, and we'll discuss the topic of how to use SharePoint Online for your project portfolio and work management needs. And as always, I hope that today's presentation grants you some insight into the world of project and portfolio management and gets you excited for the new developments happening within the industry and here at OnePlan. Remember, if you'd like access to these slides or have any questions, feel free to reach out to contact@oneplan.ai and we'd be more than happy to assist you. Thank you again, and I'll now turn the presentation over to Jim.
Thanks, Robert, and welcome everybody. We're excited to bring you the latest in our series on OnePlan and its fused UI capabilities. And today the topic is around using OnePlan within SharePoint Online and really extending it to meet your project and portfolio and overall work management needs within that SharePoint platform. So let's get started. Now, OnePlan is talking to you about these things because it's our passion and our focus to really provide these project portfolio and work management related solutions to people within the Microsoft cloud and helping them maximize the value that they get from their investments in the Microsoft technologies. We are multi-gold certified with a particular focus in project and portfolio management. And we've also been named multiple years, and most recently here just now in 2021 as Microsoft's Global Partner of the Year in Project and Portfolio Management, as well as a finalist for that Partner of the Year in Power Apps and Power Automate, which can be related to what we're talking about today. We also help people in all types of portfolio management disciplines, whether they be traditional waterfall, more hybrid, where as you can see, we are certified with Scaled Agile Inc. as a Scaled Agile partner to help people with those types of implementations as well. And we just don't focus on the technology that we're going to show you here today. We really believe to achieve business agility and full transformations, you got to address the people aspects, the process aspects, as well as the technology aspects in order to have successful change and transformation within an organization. So with that, let's get started. Now, we've done a number of similar webinars and just want to reiterate that OnePlan is built for the Microsoft cloud. It leverages your Azure Active Directory for its authentication, and it really is a single user experience that is embedded within that Office 365 user experience or Microsoft 365. When we talk about a fused user experience, it means that, yes, while you can use OnePlan directly within a browser, you may be working primarily in a different environment within that Microsoft cloud. And OnePlan can do what it does and synergize with what you're already doing in some of those other areas in Microsoft 365. So for example, could you consume and operate OnePlan within Power Apps? Absolutely, it's been designed to do so. We did a webinar on that not too long ago. Also within Dynamics itself. We can do the same thing within Azure DevOps. We did a webinar on that a couple weeks ago as well. Now today our focus is going to be how do you use OnePlan to extend the base capabilities of SharePoint to provide that overall project and portfolio and work management solution, as well as we did a webinar on Microsoft Teams to do those things. But our focus today is for those of you that are using SharePoint and live in SharePoint still quite a bit. You don't have to go anywhere else to access these capabilities that we're going to introduce to you in this webinar. So it really is about staying working in the tools that you work in every day and making it more accessible and minimize the price people pay for task switching and context switching during the course of their day. So SharePoint is a fertile ground because there's such a wide adoption of it. Numbers just even from a few years ago was that there was over 200 million users of SharePoint across 200,000 plus organizations. That's a pretty successful adoption rate within the marketplace for Microsoft. And it's been primarily used by people, at its core for documents and content management, but it's also flexible and configurable for, most web-based collaboration needs that people need to do to spin up within their organization, because it's easy to provision sites and list apps and things that you might want within that. Many people don't know this, but Microsoft Teams, which is also spreading like a weed out there and is actually the fastest growing adoption of a technology in Microsoft's history, also leverages SharePoint capabilities for documents and content on the back end of that. SharePoint does support a wide variety of uses, and people get very innovative on how they use SharePoint. But some things, to get past a certain point, will require some additional help, which oftentimes means custom development at times. And many try to use it for simple project and portfolio management needs, like lists of projects that they want to update, or maybe simple task lists as part of projects. But it does have limitations, and we'll talk about that today. Now, when we think about a fully capable project and portfolio management solution, the Gartner Group talks about these areas, and I've color-coded a little bit of these because when I think about it in context of SharePoint, the green ones might be, SharePoint does a pretty full job of doing these areas, and the gray ones might be, they do it partially, and then the blue ones might be areas that it really doesn't address at all and very well. And so these areas that you look at here, like project demand management, does that partially. Can you have lists of requests? Absolutely. But what about the resource aspect of that? Project planning and management, no real time phase scheduling involved on any kind of real basis. Program management and integrations are things that are partial because there's some things you can do, and SharePoint is integrated with the Office stack out of the box and things like that, but it's partial when you think about it in the context of project and portfolio management. Project collaboration, reporting services, security and user management, and usability, SharePoint handles that all pretty well. But things that require, more robust time phasing of data and other things like that, like financial management, resource capacity planning, maybe even incorporating those things into what-if scenarios in project portfolio management, as well as timesheets and time reporting. These are things that it really requires some help. So if we think about what else is needed in SharePoint to provide a full adaptive portfolio management solution in SharePoint, you really have to have things like the ability to do, time phasing of data, whether it be timelines, whether it be in your portfolio or your overall detailed schedules that you have in your projects, whether it be resource capacity planning, which by its nature has to have time phasing in order to make it work, and the ability to, really have, detailed time phase schedules at a granular level to manage those things across the execution of your projects are all things that SharePoint won't do for you out of the box and with its native capabilities, and needs some help in order to make that happen. So if we think about a full PPM capability based solution, people that typically want to do end-to-end on this, there has to be some concept of demand management. Now, SharePoint can build you a list, but when you start looking at doing funding and time phasing and more detailed business cases and looking at the resource or financial aspects of that, typically it needs a little more help, but it can be done within SharePoint to a certain degree. Budgeting and cost management, that typically requires some time phasing in and of itself. And whether or not you just want to lump sum in a field in SharePoint versus a time phasing of a detailed budget could drive whether or not you need additional capabilities there. Portfolio management, things like strategic alignment and doing analysis and optimization, which could be scenario modeling, definitely needs some help there. Project management, really being able to do detailed schedule management. There are some simple Gantt chart as widgets that you can put into SharePoint, but if you really want to do serious project management that includes good resource management from the bottom up, definitely could use some help there as well. Now, project collaboration. This is where, from a PPM perspective, even PPM tools like we're going to talk about today, leverage the strength and what's there in SharePoint for things like documents and artifacts, and even tracking other lists of things within SharePoint. And SharePoint is a key component of this, and some people are using it in the context of teams as well. Task status and time reporting. Do you need to do a timesheet for your organization? Do you bill out to other clients? Do you do chargebacks? Do you need it to properly track CapEx and OpEx according to your organization's policies? And just do time phase task statusing across things. Reporting and analytics. Do you need to do reporting on more than just the listing of data that you have within SharePoint? And integrations. Yes, SharePoint supports some level of integrations, but when we talk about other things like time phase data for things like financials and service management, and even being able to do things with Agile tools that are out there as well. Definitely things that we can enhance to provide those things. And we're here today to talk to you about the fact that OnePlan can actually bring these things together and add these things to the party from within your use of SharePoint. Now, we talk about Agile, and as people want to facilitate transformations in that direction, we've talked about this in prior webinars. And if you start on the right and think about where people have been for many years in more traditional waterfall-based types of project and portfolio management, there's folks that are saying the organization's taking them in a more agile direction. There may have certain parts of the organization that are doing things in a more agile fashion, whether it be software development or IT, or maybe even product development. And some might have aspirations to fully go to the left in order to achieve full agile portfolio management and execution. But those journeys take time. And whether it's just in transition that an organization might be in that middle node, which adaptive portfolio management, or some people call hybrid, where you're going to have some measure of a mix of waterfall and agile and even maybe combined approaches to doing projects, that may be a transitional state or even a permanent state for people. But to be able to do all of these and be able to accommodate people wherever they're at in this journey or where they intend to stay requires some tool sets and some capabilities that are flexible enough to handle all of these at any given point in time. On top of that, if you have mixed methodologies and mixed tool sets, how do you roll all that data up in a cohesive way, in a coherent way? Using different tools, for example, for scheduling, as opposed to using different methodologies within those tools, whether they be iterative or waterfall, and having them, essentially summarize up into different projects or initiatives, and then have them roll up maybe into programs or different parts of the organization or different portfolios, or even align with strategies and corporate goals. You have to be able to have a way to get that data together and rolled up in a coherent fashion. Now, leadership tends to be interested in that upper part, and the teams themselves that are actually executing on these projects tend to be more involved at the lower portion of this diagram. And what we end up with is, even if people are fully agile, you still have, let's just say a language barrier sometimes, where if an organization from top to bottom isn't fully bought into the agile concept, leadership might still want information in a way that's more traditional business language to help them manage the business and relay information to their superiors or to their shareholders. And the idea is to be able to track and see how their investments in projects are tracking over a course of time. So, for example, the terminology, the teams might be using things like burn-ups and burn-downs and velocity charts and cumulative flow diagrams and WSJF, weighted shortest job first prioritization, and bug trends, where at the top, they're still interested in return on investment, internal rates of return, net present value, earned value, other things like that, that are familiar to them and familiar to their audiences that they're trying to communicate to. So the idea is we need something to help bring this all together. And OnePlan really is that technology that does that. In this picture you see to the right, OnePlan sits at the top of that pyramid, providing all the portfolio management capabilities we discussed earlier on, and has its own planning tools within there for both waterfall and agile. But for organizations that are committed and embedded into using other tool sets for those purposes, in this very Microsoft-oriented example of this, they could use their new project for the web for the waterfall. They could use Project Professional, the traditional project on the desktop, or Azure DevOps, or potentially even Jira, for example, for where the agile planning might come from, and have that all summarized into the overall portfolio within OnePlan. Now, as I had mentioned, OnePlan does what it does, but for people that want to work within SharePoint, think about providing capabilities right within the context of what you're already doing within SharePoint, and being able to do your portfolio planning and tracking, whether it be more traditional portfolios potentially with timelines in them or Gantt charts, working with your portfolio in terms of boards for the more agile oriented types of folks, or even looking at them in terms of traditional roadmaps that people want to see more and more these days for how their projects are tracking with the key checkpoints and milestones that are involved. Also, the resource capacity planning. Notice this is very time phased and grid based in its nature. and not easy to model within SharePoint at its core and be able to maintain over multiple timeframes and multiple years and outlooks as you go through, as well as financial planning. Same time phasing challenges also present themselves, and be able to track these things in the categorizations and flexible views that people want and have those summarized into their projects and their portfolio seamlessly is something that you need a little more capability than what's natively out of the box in SharePoint. As well as work planning. Now, whether you're using OnePlan's own work planner or you're bringing in data from, say, Microsoft Project or Planner or Project for the Web, or if you're doing Agile tooling and either using our Agile Backlog Planner or using Azure DevOps or Jira, and then being able to have consistent, comprehensible status reports that in a consistent basis can get automatically generated based upon the data in the system to provide a consistent communication to the audiences for these reports and the consumers of these reports in ways that's easy for them to interpret and understand, because it provides a consistent picture for them. And you're not building these one-off each reporting period, as people often are still doing today. Also being able to get feedback from your teams, to have fully integrated into the system and be able to access right from within SharePoint an individual's timesheet to be filled out, or a My Work area just to status those tasks if that's all you need. Or the ability to have a home page from OnePlan right within SharePoint that allows an individual user to see what's on their plate, maybe what's off track, what's running behind, and maybe some communications around their projects that they need to see. All of this can be done and fused right within your SharePoint user experience, as well as leveraging SharePoint for content management as well. We can even add strategy in there. If you think about strategic execution, which more and more organizations are looking at doing, not only do they have to execute on those strategies, senior leadership needs to, they also have to be able to potentially align your projects and initiatives with those strategies, such that, yes, you have to succeed at executing on your strategy, and that can be helped managed right in OnePlan, as well as you might have your more traditional projects or agile projects being run by your different parts of the organization that support those strategies, and have those aligned to those strategies is something organizations are finding more important, to make sure that they're working on the right things, and the things that they are investing on their projects directly contribute to where the organization wants to head strategically. Now, when I talk about integrations, we're not talking about custom code and one-off things that we're doing that are sometimes hard to support over time. We're talking about OnePlan having a connector platform and productized connectors for some of the more popular tools and solutions out there. You know, when I talk about Azure DevOps or Jira, we have pre-built connectors for that you just connect into your implementation. We have pre-built connectors for financial ERP and HR systems that are popular that you see down there. Project and work management solutions, service management solutions for the popular ones, CRM solutions for professional services, for example, and even integrations with SharePoint for content as well allows us to be able to do these things in a way that's productized and supportable from with the solution, rather than as APIs and solutions change, you don't have to manage that over time and have things break because things are changing on the vendor or supplier side on the software delivery. So really what we're talking about here is within OnePlan and within SharePoint or whatever environment that you're working in, you have one interface to go to. You basically end up with one experience, and that's really your one plan that you can work with in that user experience. OnePlan provides that for you. And today we want to show that to you live and in action. And we have Paul Estabrooks here today, who's going to demonstrate those capabilities to you. So Paul.
All right, Jim. I'm going to walk through today a really broad demo of OnePlan functioning in a SharePoint environment. As you can see, I've logged into a SharePoint space. We've landed on this home page where I can quickly learn about some different things, view a status report. I could submit an idea through here and so forth, and other things that I might want to do. I'm going to sort of use the navigation across the top to guide our journey today. I'm going to start going to look at ideas. Where the journey begins for many of our clients, and many of the clients of ours who use the SharePoint sort of fused UI experience, it's because they want to do rich ideation and or rich business case development, and the form capability of SharePoint and the existing sort of infrastructure and user experience with it drives that. So you can see here, I got a bunch of ideas. We've ranked them in different sort of states that they're in, and we're looking at different things. I can capture data about it. If I want to look at it, create a new one, I click on it and it exposes a form. These forms obviously are configurable, and there's lots of rich capability here in SharePoint for how we go about doing this, where you capture the information that you require to make a decision around this idea and advance it forward in whatever workflow or governance structure that you have. So just close that quickly. Once I'm done with that idea and people are reviewing these, I could come in and I could convert it. And in this demo, it's a very agile spin to it. So I might take this idea and make it a program, or I might make it an epic, which is something similar to a project. I could also edit it, add more data, comments, collaborate on this particular idea. You can see on the far right, you can rate it and score it and so forth. But once I'm done doing that, I can convert it to an epic, because what I want to do then is further develop the idea with more information like resources, budgets, and so forth. So we think this is worthwhile. We're going to convert it and away we go. So imagine for a minute that that's what I did. I'm going to go look at my epics list. So this is the list of projects or epics that have come through that ideation. And now I'm looking at them here, and I can start to plan out further. Where do they fit? What's going on? Where are they? And again, we have these proposed ones that have come in, and we should do more evaluation on them. I'm going to use one here that we use often because it's got good data for us to look at. So when I jump into it to edit it, now I'm interacting with this epic. So again, that data that would have first started with the intake or the ideation has now traveled with it to this stage. You can see some of the information that was on that previous form, and along with some other information. So we're sort of bringing along the data that we're capturing and then adding and augmenting it as we go. Now I might want to do a full-scale business case. We've got, in this particular example, some text boxes where you could fill in data about this particular epic or this particular initiative. And then I want to get into my plan. So I have my details. Let me do something here. I actually want to go back over here. I have my resource plan. I'm going to expand this a little. So I want to look at this in a bit of a bigger screen. So you could see here that we've done some resourcing demand here. So we're looking at capacity. So I want to go in and say, what do I need? I need some, thinking in Agile terms, we've got a PM or an individual on this project, plus we've got a couple of teams. And I'm logged in here as Daniel Williams, and I could fill in some data that for what my capacity or my demand would be on this particular project. So I'm staffing the project. I could use generics, or in this case, teams, or named individuals as I start to build this up. The kinds of things, Jim mentioned this in his slides, that people need to do as part of any PPM solution, whether it's Agile or hybrid or pure, waterfall, is that initial pass on, well, what do I need for individuals on this project? In this case, you see we're mapping it based on hours. And then filling in what that demand is. And you can see we're okay on capacity on these particular individuals. If we weren't, these would be yellow or red, okay? So having done that, I then also may want to start to look at what the costs would be. And so we've drawn in and we've pulled in the costs for those different those teams based on the resource plan by importing the costs, okay? So I can import costs here from the resource plan. I'm not gonna do that right now. They're already in. So I've drawn those in, and then I've started to fill in other budget items that pertain to this particular project and where we envision things happening. You can see we sort of got a pretty steady state of travel and expenses we're anticipating. And if we were to purchase software or something else, we could fill that in here and build up the budget for this particular initiative. So now I have, for this epic, I have my business case information. I have the initial information that we brought in from ideation, and now I've rounded that out with an initial pass on resourcing demand and budget so that I can start to make some portfolio decisions. I'm going to exit out of this for now. I may come back here in a little bit, but I want to go and look at strategy. So we've looked at work, and we'll come back to that in a bit, but what I also now want to look at is the analyzer. And if you've seen any OnePlan demos in the past, this will look quite familiar. We've embedded this capability into the solution. So here I'm looking at my complete list. I've got a variety of them. I'm going to do lean portfolio prioritization. I could turn on the prioritization and start to move projects up and down based on their ranking. You can see here, which might be driven off of way to shortest job or cost of delay or however we might be ranking them. I'm going to look at this using budgets. So I've got down here, I want to go, I'm going to use my FY 2019 budget. That's where my data is. So bear with me just 1 second here. Range here quickly. There we go. And I quickly could see here in my portfolio, ignore the dates, I just know that's where the data is. And I can quickly see that I'm okay on budget. I'm not great on timing. So I have a couple of options. I could start to unclick projects and say, we're not going to do those. And you'll see down below, we've reduced the budget some. We've actually maybe cleaned up a couple of months. We're sort of getting better. Or I could pull this over and start moving projects around inside the portfolio so that I'm analyzing this data in such a way that I can see if I move a project out or move it in, where does the timing go in terms of budget? Because I'm trying to get this to align to the budget that we set. So we're doing that prioritization and planning here. And I'm not going to sit here and play around with any more of this, just but the concepts are there. I set that target, I move my data, I maybe pause some projects. You can see the ones that I clicked. A couple, they're off track, so there may be a reason why we want to stop them anyway, because they could be threatening the budget in other ways. I could then turn around and look at this from a resourcing perspective and say, where are we in terms of resourcing availability and resourcing capacity against those same projects? And then I save the scenario and move forward with my planning and executing on these projects. So we're doing all of that portfolio analytics and decision making right here inside SharePoint, where we captured the work, where we defined the business cases, and then now where we're going to go and execute on the work. So the next thing that I want to show, and we'll jump back to my epics and go back to that same one, is the idea of doing schedules right here inside SharePoint. So let's go to edit here quickly, jump back into my plan. Now you can see, and we're going to leverage some of the other components within SharePoint when we do this. But first I want to look at the work plan just quickly. So in my work plan here, I'll bother to expand it, we've linked this particular project to Project for the Web or Project Pro. This one's connected to Project Pro. And so I'm bringing in this data from the core scheduling tool that my team wants to use or the PM needs to use, and I'm bringing it here where we can collaborate on it, view it, discuss it, make plans, move dates around, and reschedule work. I could also have a backlog, which will pull data in. This one's pulling it in from Azure DevOps. So this is a hybrid project that we're bringing in data from both locations. If you've seen OnePlan demo before, it's pretty standard stuff that we like to show, but we're doing it in this particular case right here in SharePoint so that we can do all of the kinds of scheduling tasks that we need to do. In addition, we also have the core things that where SharePoint starts to excel, list type items. So here I want to be able to track my risks, my issues, my change requests, status reports. I want to fill out a new status report and create it and send it off for approval and submission and all the rest of it. All of these things are core components that people who use SharePoint look to use all the time for team sites. And so embedded in here, where we have the initial information about the project, its business case, its schedule, its resource plan, its budget, all those things is where we are also tracking risks, issues, changes, and status reports so that we as an organization can make decisions and execute on this project by collaborating in a single environment, that one interface, that one experience that Jim talked about just a few minutes ago. All of it is right here. And I'll come full circle on this in two areas. One, if I go up here into my workplace, you'll see my work, my timesheets, my time off, and some of these other components. I'll just quickly jump to my work. We're here, again, right inside SharePoint, where I might have worked on and collaborated on some risks and issues. I might have updated a business case that I was working on, provided some input on a document for a project. I can now go and status the tasks that I am working on or backlog items right here inside that same SharePoint user experience. And for management, kind of comes full circle in this manner. Embedded into this solution is Power BI. And so now we've got a rich set of reports down here that we can work through to see how we're performing as an organization, and we're staying within that same interface, that same experience. So embedded right in here in the top navigation, based on rights and permissions and so forth, is that ability to analyze and dive into that rich data that we're capturing. We can look at things like how we're doing in ideation, the aging of ideas, the processing of them. Where are we in terms of the portfolio and progress? We could have reports in here that link all this back to strategy, as Jim showed in one of his slides. All of that is embedded here, and I haven't left this frame the whole time. I've stayed within the SharePoint world. Again, sort of in closing, where we see clients do this, a lot of times it's where they want to do rich ideation and rich business case development with lots of forms and that capability, and they have an existing infrastructure around SharePoint that they want to leverage for risks, issues, and the sort of normal team collaboration. And what they're missing are the components that Jim asked about. And those are the components that OnePlan brings. And hopefully this demo has sort of helped you understand that. And with that, Jim, I'll turn it back over to you.
Well, thanks for the overview, Paul. Let's summarize some of what you've seen here today and talk about some potential next steps. So in summary, Microsoft SharePoint Online is a powerful hub for content and collaboration used by many organizations, and many try to use SharePoint for some measure of project and portfolio management today, but its native capabilities hit limits. And OnePlan, hopefully we showed you today, brings powerful portfolio management capabilities to that SharePoint experience. And OnePlan also provides a variety of solution templates for different customer needs, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Now, it can be implemented in SharePoint as a robust portfolio management solution or as a simple collaborative project and work tool. You can choose to leverage the capabilities that make sense for you if you don't want to use everything that you saw here today. OnePlan also integrates with other work execution tools, even though it has its own planning tools, as Paul showed you. It integrates with other work management tools as well as with SharePoint for content and collaboration, documents, etc. It also helps you support a variety of methodologies like waterfall, agile, and hybrids that are often not easy to do in a native SharePoint environment. So we talked to you earlier on about staying working in the tools that you work in every day. So if you're spending a lot of time in SharePoint and most of the things you're doing on a content basis is within there, you don't have to leave there to access the capabilities. And as you look at some of the prior webinars we did in just recent weeks, the same would hold true for Power Apps or Teams or Azure DevOps. And we have one probably coming up in October. It's going to talk more about Dynamics. So to that end, we give these webinars almost every week. And on October 7th, we have one coming up for collaborative work and project management in Microsoft Teams. And this is going to be for kind of some of that lighter touch type of project management that people want to do, and portfolio management and work management they want to do right within Teams. So with the popularity of Teams, we always get a good audience for folks when we talk about doing things and how to extend the value of Microsoft Teams that people are already using. And then the week after that, we're going to be talking about aligning work execution with corporate strategy in Microsoft Teams. So once again, Teams related, but I alluded earlier in the presentation to some of that strategic execution and strategic alignment, and we're going to show how that can be all accomplished right within Microsoft Teams. Now you can get started today by just getting some free trials. The adaptive project portfolio management piece that you might want to look at that handles both waterfall and more agile approaches is available for you to access up in Microsoft's App Source. So you can go up there and look under OnePlan and find our adaptive project and portfolio management trial. These trials would have you do this, natively in the browser without connecting it to anything at this point, but it gives you a good look and feel for what we're talking about. When I talked about templates for other use cases, we also have templates just for strategic portfolio management, just for agile portfolio management, and also for professional services for people that want to, have built or that have the need to do, projects for external clients that they need to build to, etc. And just recently, and the webinar that we have coming up is collaborative work and project management that you can look at, which is a lighter touch version of some of the things that we talked about as well. And if you're not really ready to invest the time in a trial, we can often also have a discussion. We offer a free roadmap workshop, One Plan Solutions does, where we could review your current use of tools and solutions that you have, assess the current requirements you have, and maybe some desired future states you aspire to. And we can determine what it would take for you and communicate to you what it would take to migrate into a new solution that has these capabilities, and even provide an implementation roadmap for the best adoption success and what that might cost. You may even own a lot of the licensing you already need to make that happen. So from a next steps perspective, the free trial, the roadmap workshop, or if you want to go deeper, Paul did a very generalized high-level demo today. If you would like something more personalized one-on-one for you and your company based upon your unique circumstances and requirements, we're happy to schedule that with you. You can reach out to us at contact@oneplan.ai. Look for more information at our website at oneplan.ai. And feel free to reach out to Paul or I as well. You're going to get a copy of these slides, so you'll have our contact information. And OnePlan really does want to engage with you. We are very heavily invested in this subject matter area. We are invested in success, and by that we mean your success. So we hope to engage with you and help you along your journey, and hope you found some value out of the topic today. Thank you, and have a great day.